welcome to Forbidden Planet TV, and on today's episode we are joined by Catriona Ward to talk Nowhere Burning, which has just been published, so this is hot off the presses. How are you? We were just saying we haven't seen each other for very briefly at the end of last year.
Yes.
At the end of last year.
Yeah.
So,
but it's always in those contexts of like a big con or some event, and you say half a sentence to someone, and then you have to run off and go. You know, you're constantly like a magpie, sort of like looking around.
And then you feel quite guilty after. I know I always feel like this, like working Comic Cons and stuff, because you see people for like 2 minutes here and 3 minutes there, and then you're just like, I did see you, but we didn't actually have a conversation of any kind of like, of any length of time. So
but we're having one now.
So we're having one now. So Nowhere Burning, your 6th book.
It is. Yeah, I can't believe it really. It's you sort of like you. I think by the 6th one, even though it feels like you'll never finish, you because historically the evidence shows that you probably will. Like you just work through the despair instead of giving into it.
And do you get? I think you've mentioned before about how you can get like the magpie phases where things will distract you. You know, maybe the shiny thing over there. I know same thing if I'm on any deadline. It's just like I suddenly start sorting out the cutlery drawer.
Procrastination is a great it becomes a sort of form of art, really.
Yes.
But I think sometimes that can be part of the process. You know, I mean, a lot of writing is thinking, or letting things percolate. It is just that strange thing, isn't it, where you're supposed to haul from your depths the essence of who you are and all you feel and render the truth on the page, but you've also got to organise it, and I always think it's an important thing I try to remember when I'm writing is I don't want to tell my story, I want to tell the story. So but to do that you have to use yourself in quite a profound way, so it's a weird balancing act,
Yeah, and it must be weird as well. Like I can just imagine for authors, like it's such a personal thing, yet you then have to stand back and just say, oh.
Yes, you have to push it out to sea. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, we were touching on this before we started, weren't we? But like, so this one was particularly emotional, really, to write, because I got halfway through it, and then my mother came home for the last time, and I obviously put the book down, and afterwards I just felt I could never pick it up again. I actually, to be honest, felt that I would never write again. I was convinced that I wouldn't, but apparently it is a job, not a hobby. And also one of the last things that she said to me was, never stop writing. And you can't, what do you do? So I just showed up. I showed up at the desk. I wrote. I mean, just. When writing's just typing. Yeah. I was just typing. But I thought if I just show up often enough and regularly enough and steadily enough, maybe one day it'll come back. And I think it did. And I hope I found a way with that balancing act we were just talking about to put all the love I've felt into the book without it being about my specific situation, because the spine of this book is the love between Riley and her brother Oliver. Riley's 14 and he's he's 7, and they're sort of in this they're orphaned, and they're in a very undesirable, quite emotionally abusive sort of foster situation with cousin, and everything Riley does is governed by protecting her brother and saving him, which she makes some very dubious choices throughout the book, but somehow that because that love is so profound, you sort of hopefully forgive her. But anyway, so the book opens with her being followed home by what she thinks is a boy dressed in green, who later appears that night at her window and tells her about Nowhere, which is where a community of children have set up their own societies, quite lost boys, quite Peter Pan, lots of influence, very much influenced by that. Also, some Lord of the Flies, nice mixture of those two, and the the figure in green hands Riley a set of instructions, which is just like scribbled on the back of like a gas station receipt of like, you know, turn left at the lilac tree or whatever. So she sets off into the mountains, the Colorado Rockies, to find Nowhere House, which is this burnt out shell on an estate where a movie star used to live who committed terrible acts. So, you know, it's just interesting. Because obviously, Nowhere is not Neverland.
Yes.
For creative and legal reasons.
Yes.
But it is that sort of thing of like, because when I had the idea, I was we were driving through wine country in California, and it was, which was, I mean, it's a very middle class thing to do. And also my favourite kind of country is wine country. But my brother-in-law just pointed out the window, and he went, "Oh, at this dirt track." It was just an unmarked dirt track, like behind a farm gate. And he went, "Oh, that's Neverland up there." And it was such a cognitive moment of cognitive dissonance, because it doesn't feel like a place. It's an idea. It's a concept. It's something that's got such a place in our imaginations that it's not. It doesn't feel like there could be a road that leads to it, or that you could go there. So that's sort of where the genesis of it came from. And I just wondered what happens there. You know, this rusting fairground. This strange atmosphere. And also, can you find sanctuary in a place where perhaps, you know, terrible things have happened? How much do places hold memory? How much meaning do we ascribe to them, and how much do we create that narrative? And anyway, so another comedy from me.
Yes, yeah, as always. And it's so interesting to just think of places. They almost become like some weird liminal space. Like everyone's aware of these places existing, right? Yeah. But you never think, "Oh, I wonder what's going on there." Do people still live there? Like?
I mean, I do know the answers to that with Neverland, but my answers are much more interesting. Don't bother googling.
So you briefly mentioned there about a cousin who is kind of looking after Oliver and Riley at the start, and it's so interesting because you never really kind of. He's almost like this kind of amorphous thing in the background, but he's just cousin. And there's something quite
ominous about that. Yeah, for sure. Yes, exactly. As in, he's not kind of given. He's not given any human means to connect with him. He doesn't even have a name. But I thought, because he's just part of the context that drives them to Nowhere, and I thought they had to have something really eerie to flee from, but also is in keeping with that kind of air of Peter Pan sort of fairy tale-ness, that, you know, things are referred to just by, you know, very simple, like, you know, proper nouns.
And I think a lot of these, it's quite interesting, a lot of both the kind of, I suppose, fairy tales and almost like Disneyfication of things like Peter Pan. But when you actually kind of go back and look at it
is not a book for children.
No.
There's that whole chapter where when Wendy's born, the parents have a debate about whether they can afford to keep her. And there's a lot of violence. People for a novel that's about escaping death, you know, it's got a lot of like, you know,
well, you kind of think it's almost a bit too late. You've had the child now, so, you know, just give the child a good upbringing and love and all the things you would like. Now, one of the obviously most, you know, pivotal and interesting relationships is between Oliver and Riley, and there's a lot of love there between them. It's beautiful to read that kind of relationship. So where did that kind of come from for you?
Well, so I don't have a brother, and I think in most of my previous books, you know, I try. It's less scary to hook into something where you at least have a semblance of personal experience of it, but there is this thing with needing to protect someone where the moral lines become a bit grey, don't they? Where you can, it's sort of one of the few and protect a child, and to protect your younger brother is one of the few contexts where you can sort of forgive things which normally would make Riley into a villain, but because she does it because she doesn't see any other way out. It becomes you can understand it, you can make a connection with it, and I thought as I said, I think I found a way to put the love and the grief that I was feeling into that relationship, and it's just there's just something so incredibly immovable about family. You're connected no matter what you do, even if you hate each other, even if you never see each other for years and years and years, you're still related. There's nothing you can do about that. It's such an immutable and incredibly permanent bond. But yeah, it's I think a lot of my books are about families, none of them happy. But then, what family is? No, that's a little window into me.
I find the thing interesting with family, and no matter kind of what the family dynamics are like, but you inevitably kind of segue into a younger version of yourself with your family.
100%, and it's sort of there's a kind of beauty to it as well, because a lot of the time, the only people who knew what it was like for you, when who they sort of hold your past for you, as a vessel, and they know things about you that no matter how close those relationships are now, no one else can know what it was like to grow up together. So it's a kind of private pact that you have, but of course, as you say, the flip side of that, it takes you right back. And the passion one feels for family is sort of it's kind of unique. The anger that one can feel with one's family is very different from the anger you feel with friends or lovers or or just people you work with. It's kind of unique. It's a very deep bond, and so when I was growing up, I grew up in. I was born in the States, and then grew up in Kenya, Madagascar, Yemen, and Morocco. And we moved every 3 years. So you don't really, and it's before the internet, so you don't take friends when you travel. That's it. You have this almost like a guillotine point cutting off each time period where, and so you have friends, but it's temporary. Yeah. And the only constant is your family. And there's such an amazing intimacy with that. But also, how much kind of weight and responsibility can one bond take before it becomes overloaded? Like, should you need to rely that much for everything on just a very small select group of people? So this is sort of questions that I'm constantly pondering.
And it does kind of feed into when they kind of get to nowhere again. Like, no spoilers out there for anyone who hasn't watched it, but just the idea of having almost like a village, like a township of people, but it's all children.
Yes.
And so you're very kind of reliant on the people around you.
Yeah, and it's got I think it's got like almost a kind of utopian ideal to it, because they're all children who are searching for sanctuary and running from harmful and unhappy situations. So there's this great sort of sense of hope about it. I always think about. So I was watching this cult documentary. I mean, they're not really a cult, but there's sort of shades of it. But I was watching this cult documentary, and this cult survivor was saying he really loves watching exactly these kinds of documentaries, and he loves the second episode, because the second episode is when they're all like, it's going well, everyone's like like kind of like all together and supporting each other, and they're gonna, whatever their mission is, they're gonna accomplish it, and they're gonna change the world, and before it all comes crashing down and people stop bringing out cups of Kool-Aid.
Yes.
But and I thought that was really interesting, because you wouldn't, the cults wouldn't work if they were always bad, if they were always unpleasant and abusive and openly horrific. So there has to be that kind of second act where you're like, okay, I see why this is working. Like,
Yeah. That there's some reason why these people have all come together, and you know, whether it's a particular religion or whether it's kind of something more secular. It is so fascinating, like the idea of cults.
Because it's good. It's good, but just as long as it is, it's good.
Yeah. and then not so much. So some of the other characters we haven't mentioned yet. So we have Mark and we have Adam. So Mark, we have kind of almost like making a documentary. As it was.
Because they're trying to because the compound is sort of quite sealed off. You know, it's quite inaccessible valley, and they've like created barriers and like put razor wire all over the old gate and stuff like that. So it's quite it's difficult to get in, and but he wants to gain access and wants to make a documentary about it. So it's a kind of, and you know, and everyone. There's this sort of feeling that everyone has different reasons for coming there. You know, whether you're seeking sanctuary as a child, or whether, you know, this working out some kind of old trauma, or, you know, or whatever. There is a kind of feeling that nowhere draws you to it. And then Adam is this is the earliest narrative, I think, where so this in the time that the movie star Leaf Winham is still alive and living at the house before it's, you know, burnt out and abandoned and occupied by a gang of children. And he goes to build, you know, to do some work on the house, and he finds himself very drawn in and kind of I think and very like powerfully romantically attracted to Leaf. And it's one of those things that sort of interrogates that it should be so obvious that it's a terrible idea. But and yet, you know, there's this sort of culture of impunity with some kinds of celebrity, this mythic status, that actually it's impossible to really resist or treat them like a person. They're just a sort of force that draws you in. And so, and some people have said, well, like, what, you know, why on earth would he make those decisions? Why on earth couldn't he see that this is a terrible person? Or like, well, the thing is, it doesn't matter at a certain point. If you've got this kind of obsessive and you know, this person whose stature is so much larger than life, you know, they in a way you don't really believe it. You find it impossible to believe that they might be doing the terrible things they're doing, but also you don't want to. You don't have no desire to. You know, it's kind of it's very upsetting. You know, whenever you learn something about someone whose art you really admire and love, and you know, there's lots of debates to be had about, you know, how much should someone's personal actions affect your enjoyment of it. That's a whole different that's a whole different kind of discussion. But I think there is a sense of there's a real reluctance to believe that because people who meant something to you, you know, a lot and emotionally impacted you through their work would do something terrible. You want them to be gods. You want them to be.
Yeah, and it I think it kind of speaks to something that's, you know, been happening over the last few years in particular, where obviously we've had, I suppose, a lot of celebrities, a lot of people that we've looked up to, that we've grown up with. Suddenly it's finding out
a lot of that, hasn't there? And it's, you know, it's really good. It's good that there should be, you know, a realistic transparency about it, but also it's always like you're like, oh God.
No,
please, just not you. Exactly.
Yeah, you almost kind of question all the things you watched as a child.
Well, yes, that's it. Yeah.
You know, that I suppose that element of innocence gone.
Exactly.
And obviously coming back to the book, the idea of almost like the cleansing nature of the fire that happens, and kind of, you know, almost kind of nowhere starts again. Like the place is kind of a new.
Exactly. It's sort of it rises from the flames.
You
know, and it's also on a very simple level. There's just something so terrifying about fire.
Yes.
I mean, it's yeah, it does. I mean, and it's particularly when with the children who set up the community. You know, there's so much in the wild that can kill you, and the mountains don't care about us.
Yes,
they don't.
Yeah,
and and nature doesn't really care about us. And when you add this sort of like fires, got this dual nature to it, where you're relying on it for warmth and to cook, and it represents safety and home, and but it also it can destroy everything within its reach.
Yes, yeah. And I suppose there's that element of, with the kind of the main characters and obviously the group of children.
Yeah.
There is an element that, not that they're necessarily shouted, but maybe there is almost more of a fearlessness that you have in youth, where you're a bit, you don't realise the perils that are kind of all
no, and you don't really believe you're going to die, no matter how. No matter how even if you've got you're in a very unfortunate situation, and you've got there's abusive elements or whatever. If you've been hurt, you can believe you can be hurt, but you don't believe you can die. And I think that's where there's a kind of that's why the Peter Pan weaves itself in and out of the book in that way as well. Yes,
it is fascinating, because you try and put yourself back in the mindset of when you were younger, and that kind of that element of fearlessness and not kind of climbing the tree or getting on the scary ride or whatever it may be. That now you have that voice. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people have that voice in their head that's just like, don't do the thing.
Yeah, even just as simple as things. I went skiing a couple of years ago for the first time since I was, I think, 14, and I was like, what is this? Like, this is terrible. This is so scary.
What am I doing?
Yeah, what am I doing? Yeah, exactly. The risk taking is just part of. Dying is also, it's the desire not to die is universal. It's built into us in an evolutionary way, but also death is necessary for evolution. Like, you can't evolve as a species if you don't have death. So there's this kind of strange contradiction inherent in it, because it's just, we do everything in our power to resist it, and yet in order for the world and living creatures to continue adjusting and adapting, there has to be death. And I don't know if it's something we can ever accept, really, but it's, you can know it intellectually but not accept it.
Still not want and coming back as well, I was just thinking, like, earlier today when I was on my way in, that kind of the start of the book and the dynamic with cousin and stuff gives me kind of Ruby Frankie.
Yes, that's exactly right. No, that's it. Yeah, no, that is totally it, because that's another, that's another sort of, it's a sort of that incident. I mean, for the people who don't know, Ruby Frankie was this influencer. What was her YouTube channel called? It was like,
oh yes,
10, it was like traveling 10 travelers, or what was it?
Yeah, because she was it 10 children. I
think it was 8 children, and the 2 of them. I think. Yeah. And it just she met this sort of lifestyle coach who they had this just the slow moves by which it devolved into some of the most upsetting and abusive situations that's kind of the terrifying bit about it. And there's sort of little hints started to happen, didn't they? Like one of her kids accidentally said on the live stream or something that he hadn't had a bed for 6 months, had been taken away from him as a punishment, and people were like, what? And then another one of her children forgot a little one, very little one, I think she wasn't older than 7, I don't think, and had forgotten her lunch.
Oh right, yes, I remember.
Yeah, and the school called Ruby Frankie and said, can you bring some lunch into school for her? And she was like, no. She took responsibility. She has to take responsibility. If she doesn't, if she doesn't make it and bring it with her, she doesn't eat. And it's just, and it sort of starts like that, and then it evolved into this weird, like, what she called Jodie Hildebrand, the other one. So they kind of formed this sort of folie à deux mad sort of ideology of their own, and they convinced themselves that 2 of the children were possessed by demons, and so they would make them do things like work. There's a bit at the beginning of Nowhere Burning where cousin makes Oliver run up and down stairs carrying a box of bricks over and over and over again, and it's stuff like that. It's sort of exhaustion and deprivation, food deprivation, and wearing down people, the psyche, and also convincing the children that that it's a form of love,
Yes.
and and that they do need to be, they need to be disciplined like that for the demon to get out. And it's a really horrible story, but so I thought, I don't know, maybe it's our job to look horrible things in the face sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the kind of power dynamic, and it's an interesting kind of idea. This whole, so it's more modern idea of like influencers, and people who are kind of gaining popularity from I don't know, being held up as like
exactly. Yeah. It's exactly right, and it's got this kind of added layer of kind of baffling toxicity whereby this isn't supposed to be an aspirational thing. It's supposed to be presenting, in the Ruby Frankie case, like a healthy kind of like all American, apple pie kind of, like traditional family, and people watch it presumably because they think it's an ideal to be aimed towards, and actually what's happening behind is talk about the wizard behind the curtain. It's like but that's a sort of another layer of kind of nastiness to it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. There was a I read quite recently Sarah Langan's new book.
Oh,
so I'm
The Tragwife.
her next month. I loved it, and that very much reminded me of it as well, because we seem to put so much like time and effort into these kind of people that we're following on like Instagram, or these kind of perfect lives, and then you're just like, actually
it's nice if there are rules. That's the thing, is because most of life is so confusing, and there are so many shades of grey, and you have to making individual decisions and taking responsibility for your actions and looking at situations, assessing everything, on whether it's good or morally right and what you should do is exhausting. So it's very nice when someone comes along and goes, this is good, this is bad, and you're like, oh, brilliant. But the trouble is, if you speak in those kind of rigid binaries, then it leads to the abuse of that, and it's a vehicle for someone to control others.
I suppose that's the slippery slope right there. But so coming up to our last kind of couple of questions. So I always find it fascinating with your books that they're not kind of a specific genre, that they don't just sit one place, which I love. I love these kind of books that you can just hand to someone and just be like, you don't have to love horror to love this, and you don't have to love crime to love it. That it kind of speaks to many different voices. Is that kind of, I suppose that's always been your style? Is that something it's just you, it's just how you write, and you're not kind of necessarily marketing to a certain?
I don't think you can. I don't think you can. I mean, I think if you're writing for, what's the expression? I can't remember. It's something like if you're trying to write for everyone, you're writing for no one.
Yes.
And I think, when Needless Street came out, for instance, it was going to be marketed as a thriller, because it was like a thriller imprint, or a crime thriller imprint. And then when Stephen King liked it, it became horror, which is fine. To a certain extent, it's like most words that are used to do with books, in that they're sort of useful, but also not useful at all. Also, why not get on as many shelves as you can?
Well, this is the thing. You can be like dual sided, or even more than dual sided in a bookshop, because you can be in like the new book area, and then you can be in crime and thrillers, and then you can be in horror.
And I get to go to all of the I get to sit in the middle of the Venn diagram of all the fun festivals and cons and things.
Yeah,
as
you
well.
get to go
to the crime ones, the horror. I think it's what's called a straddler.
Yes.
It's a straddler.
A strap.
I don't know. I don't even remember if I made that up myself or not. We'll just call it that.
Or genre smashing. Or
Genre
something.
smashing, genre busting. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that yes? And so, what are you working on next?
Really annoyingly, I'm not actually allowed to say.
Ah.
I know. It's very exciting, and I've just I'm going to keep it for one more day, but I'm just sending it off after the weekend.
Okay.
It's a bit of a departure, and I'm feeling challenged, which I think is always a sign. I mean, the time when I worry is when I'm like, oh, it's fine, and then I'm like, oh, I don't think I did my job.
Yeah.
Unless you're crying,
sitting back.
unless you're like crying in the supermarket aisles, and like kind of trying to work out a plot point, you're sort of not working properly.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah, there is almost an element of if I'm this calm, something is wrong.
You haven't bled on the page. Yeah, exactly.
This can't be right. And to finish off, so what are you currently reading and watching?
Well, I don't read much when I'm writing, because I find either I want to write that book.
Okay.
Or, I start to get mission creep. And also then it distracts me, because as discussed earlier, one will do almost anything but write, given the chance. You're like, no, it's important that I read this lovely book. Yes. But I am reading a book about Vikings, which is called The Children of Ash and Elm by Neil Price, which is absolutely wonderful. It's so well done. It's so thoughtful, and it's talking about the Vikings are a bit like nowhere, actually. They're more of an idea to us than they are a kind of like a historically researched kind of community or diaspora of people. So just looking about how much we create Vikings in our minds, and what was it, and it's really interesting and really well done, and it doesn't try to do that thing which is so difficult when there's so little so little archaeological or written evidence remaining, which is trying to find answers or trying to tell you what happened. Instead, it's talking about the tension between what we think happened and the mysteries about what might have happened. And so I'm really enjoying that. And I'm reading Tradwife as well.
Yes. Yeah. It was very, very good. I had a very good start to the year. You have a run of just things you're just excited about.
Yeah.
Including.
She's so good. She's so good. She lives in LA, and she's nice enough to come. In fact, I'm doing an event with her in LA.
Very cool.
In sometime in March. It doesn't matter. Who knows?
She had when I met her, she had the most amazing replica Ripley jacket from Alien that I was obsessed with.
That sounds.
I was just if you turn your back, I'm going to steal your jacket. It's just super cool. But there's so many amazing voices, and especially with kind of horror having this kind of moment, which I hope never goes away, that all these authors are kind of getting the push they deserve, and
and I think people have just realised that there always has been this appetite for it. It's just that it was kind of there was a slightly kind of narrower perspective on what horror was for a while, But it's so exciting. It's such an exciting time to write in general, and particularly to write horror, I think. If it is indeed horror.
If it is indeed, if we can even put it in
exactly.
in that little box. And are you watching anything? Any films, TV shows that you're particularly excited
I watched Weapons. I actually watched it with Thomas Alderweireld, and I'm terrified of film. And he's so annoying. So he was staying. But we set it up properly. We turned off all the lights.
Mm-hmm.
I made a sort of a display of bloodied clothing and an abandoned shoe on the table in front of us to set the mood. We lit some candles and we watched it. And then during one of the scariest bits, he just went and I fell off the sofa and spilled my glass of wine on my head. So I've kind of stayed away from the television and him since then. But no, Weapons was really good.
Yes,
I
yeah,
really enjoyed it.
there's a phenomenal kind of lineup of films.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm hoping that I've been a little disappointed with some of the things I've seen this year so far. So I might go ask some trusted people for, because sometimes you just get the most amazing kind of recommendations, and you just find. I think Clay McLeod-Chapman mentioned some things on Shudder, and I was just like, okay, I'll go check them out.
Oh, I know what's really good, and it's not new, but and Paul Tremblay recommended this to me, and I watched it, and I was like, why is everyone not talking about this? Lake Mungo?
Yes,
yes,
you recommended it to me as well. I love that film. It's such a good, thank you. And it's so quiet. But I didn't move. I didn't like.
Yeah, just completely.
I was completely
held. Yeah.
Yeah. It's those type of films where you don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And they really kind of almost sideswipe you a bit.
Yeah.
But you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, but as you say, done in such a restrained way. I haven't seen Sinners yet. Okay, don't.
No.
I'm saving it. It's my treat for my reward.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'll be something you may not want to watch with Thomas if he's going to jump.
I'm never watching a horror film with him again. I've just decided it's not worth it. And also, he had no remorse whatsoever. He laughed and laughed and laughed.
Oh,
and laughed.
okay.
Boys are mean, you know.
Yeah. No. Yeah. They can be mean.
Yeah.
I remember. It wasn't a couple of years ago now. We went to cinema to watch Terrifier 2 actually, and there was a couple having a first date, which always made me chuckle.
Yeah, because that's a strange choice. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was just like, at first you just think, oh, maybe they haven't been dating long, but then one of them said, oh, what made you pick this for our first date, kind of thing.
Jesus Christ.
I was just like. Okay.
I suppose it could go one way or the other.
But this is the thing.
Drive each other into each other's arms.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
Like, who knows if they're still together now? Happy ever after. But yes, for anyone watching at home who enjoyed this chat, go buy yourself a copy of Nowhere Burning. It's phenomenal, and we will have signed copies available on our website and very soon in all 10 of our stores. And you're also going to be signing some copies up in Newcastle as well, which they are very excited about. Our books guy Peter is a huge horror nerd. He's very excited.
I can't wait.
Yes. But until next time, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.